The Kirath refugee station floated in the shadow of Proxima Station like a forgotten promise. Among the sleek chrome corridors where species from across the galaxy conducted their business, the refugee docks remained deliberately hidden, a necessary embarrassment tucked away from polite society. Vara pressed her 3 cubs closer to her chest, their white fur stark against her own pale coat. In the dim light of the processing center, she could see the disgust in the Kirath administrator's vertical pupils. Her kind, the Felar, were uncommon enough in this sector. Albino Felar were considered cursed. Application denied, the administrator said, all 4 of his arms gesturing dismissively. Station regulations clearly state that refugees must demonstrate productive potential. Your condition makes you unemployable. My condition? Vara's voice remained steady despite the tremor in her limbs. I have engineering credentials from a world that no longer exists. The Kirath's translator rendered his words with bureaucratic coldness. No one will hire you. The cubs will require resources. Denied. Next. Farah gathered her cubs and stepped away from the counter, her mind racing. 3 days. They had 3 days before their temporary visa expired, and they would be expelled into the void. Not literally, but dropped at the nearest unregulated port, which amounted to the same thing. The cubs hadn't eaten in 2 days. The youngest, Mika, had stopped mewing for food. That frightened Vara more than anything. She wandered the lower decks where the desperate gathered, asking for work, for charity, for anything. Doors closed. Eyes averted. The galaxy, she had learned, had little patience for weakness. Her white fur and pink eyes marked her as defective and her cubs as future burdens. As the second day waned, Vara found herself in the maintenance sector, a place she'd avoided because of its reputation. This was where the humans worked. Humans were new to galactic society. Barely 50 years since first contact, they were considered crude, emotionally unstable, and dangerously unpredictable. They took contracts others refused, worked in conditions deemed unacceptable, and had a disturbing tendency to involve themselves in matters that didn't concern them. Vara had heard the rumors. Humans couldn't mind their own business, they formed attachments too easily, and they had an irrational soft spot for what they called underdogs. She had no other options left. The mechanic's bay smelled of ozone and metal. A human stood beneath a cargo lifter, his dark hands covered in hydraulic fluid. He was smaller than she'd expected. Humans were slight compared to most sapients, but there was a wiry strength in his movements. Help you? He asked without looking up, his translator rendering his words in perfect Felar. I need work. Vara's voice cracked. Anything. I can clean, organize, I have engineering training. You're Felar. The human emerged from beneath the lifter, wiping his hands on a rag. His eyes, brown with that unnerving circular pupil, studied her without the revulsion she'd grown accustomed to. Albino? Vara's ears flattened. Yes. That a problem for your people? For everyone, apparently. The human, his name tag read Marcus Chen, tilted his head. The gesture reminded her painfully of her own cubs. Why? The question was so unexpected that Vara nearly laughed. Because we're defective, weak, our eyes are sensitive. We can't handle bright light well. You got credentials, Marcus interrupted. Yes, but they're from... Let me see them. Vara pulled up her datapad with shaking paws, showing him her engineering certifications. Marcus scrolled through them, his expression unreadable. Humans were difficult to read. Their faces moved too much, showed too many micro-expressions. You're overqualified for cleaning, Marcus said finally. I need an assistant engineer. Pay's not great, but it includes living quarters in the human sector and meal credits. Vara stared at him. You're offering me a job? That a problem? But my cubs, living quarters, Marcus repeated. Plural rooms. There's a nursery. Human kids are loud and destructive, so we built reinforced play areas. Your cubs will fit right in. You don't understand. I'm albino. We're considered... I heard you the first time. Marcus's tone remained even. Do you know how to repair a plasma conduit or not? Yes, but then you're hired. Start tomorrow. Pay 7,0800 hours. There's an advance on your pay for food. He transferred credits to her pad before she could protest. Get your cubs fed. They look hungry. Vara's legs nearly gave out. Why? Why would you help us? Marcus returned to his work, sliding back under the lifter. His voice drifted up, matter of fact. Where I come from, we had a lot of stupid reasons to reject people. Skin color, eye shape, who they loved, where they were born. We're still working through all that, honestly, but we learned something. He paused, adjusting something that sparked. The people society throws away. They're not broken. Society is. You're not defective. You're unlucky. Bad luck isn't permanent. But the other species? The other species are older, more advanced, supposedly wiser. Marcus's voice carried a note of something Vera would later recognize as quintessentially human. Stubborn defiance. But wisdom without compassion is just sophisticated cruelty. Humans learned that the hard way. We nearly destroyed ourselves before we figured it out. Over the following weeks, Vera discovered that Marcus's Bay was not unique. The human sector of Proxima Station had become an unofficial haven for the rejected. A Skrin with a genetic disorder worked in the cafeteria. A Veleric who'd lost an arm in an accident managed inventory. 2 Thrakan refugees who'd fled religious persecution maintained the air recyclers. The humans called it second chances. They had a dozen phrases for it. Paying it forward. Lifting as you climb. There but for the grace of God. Vera learned them all as she worked alongside Marcus. Repairing systems, improving efficiency, teaching him techniques from Filar engineering schools. Her cubs thrived. They played with human children who didn't care about white fur or pink eyes. They learned human games and human stubbornness in equal measure. Mika, the youngest, became particularly attached to Marcus, climbing onto his shoulders while he worked and purring loud enough to disturb his concentration. One day, the Kirath administrator who'd denied her application came to the human sector with a maintenance request. He froze when he saw Vera, now wearing an engineer's badge, her cubs tumbling happily in the nearby play area. You're still here, he said, his translator struggling with his confusion. I work here, Vera replied simply. The administrator's eyes narrowed. The human hired you? Because of my qualifications, Vera corrected. My appearance never came up. Marcus emerged from his office, datapad in hand. You need something, or are you just browsing? The Kirath's mandibles clicked with irritation. I don't understand you humans. She's defective. The cubs are none of your concern, Marcus interrupted, his voice acquiring a hard edge Vera had rarely heard. She's my lead engineer now. Best hire I've made. Your repair request, we'll get to it when we have time. Might be a while. We prioritize paying customers who respect our staff. The administrator left, confusion and anger radiating from his posture. You'll make enemies, Vera said quietly after he'd gone. Marcus shrugged. A gesture Vera had learned meant indifference to consequences. Probably. But here's the thing about humans, we're pack animals. We're loyal to our pack, even if it's just a mechanic's bay on a station in the middle of nowhere. You're pack now. You and your cubs. Anyone who has a problem with that can take it up with the whole human sector. Vera looked at her cubs, healthy and happy, playing without shame. She looked at the scars on Marcus's hands from 1,000 repairs, at the determined set of his jaw, at the fundamental decency that his species carried like both a burden and a gift. Thank you, she said, knowing the words were inadequate. Marcus smiled. Humans smiled a lot, she'd learned, even when things were difficult. Thank me by teaching me that Felar trick with the resonance couplers. I've been trying to figure it out for weeks. Later, when Vera's cubs were asleep in their new quarters and she sat alone with her thoughts, she reflected on what she'd learned. The galaxy was ancient and vast, full of species who'd perfected logic and efficiency. But the humans, crude and young and emotional, had perfected something the others had forgotten. Mercy. Not mercy as pity. Mercy as recognition, as if to say, I see your struggle because I know struggle. I extend my hand because I remember when I needed a hand extended. The galaxy called it irrational. The humans called it human. And in a mechanics bay on Proxima Station, it made all the difference.